Years from now, people will still recall the moment Barack Obama sat across from Donald Trump in his own office and left him without a response. The air inside the White House felt different that morning. Heavier, still, and tense. It wasn't the kind of quiet that brings calm, but the kind that tightens your chest. Security stood a bit straighter. Staff members spoke in low voices. Every step echoing through the marble halls seemed to signal that something significant was about to unfold. Inside the Oval Office, the president's chair faced the window, sunlight reflecting off its polished surface. Donald Trump sat with his hands clasped, eyes fixed on the door. He had personally requested this meeting. The stated purpose was a discussion on national issues, policy, direction, and unity. But everyone understood that wasn't the whole story. There was a history behind this meeting, a lingering shadow, because the person walking into that office was Barack Obama. The same man who had once publicly embarrassed Trump with a few jokes and a steady smile. Now Trump had the title, the authority, and the space. And for someone like him, that meant something else. A chance to settle old frustrations. The clock on the wall ticked once, then again, each sound echoing like a heartbeat. Tick, tick. The doors opened. Barack Obama walked in with a calm, measured stride. It was the same controlled walk that had once filled arenas with applause, now carrying him into a room charged with tension. He wore his usual relaxed half-smile. Not forced, not defensive, simply polite. A look that said, "I understand what this is, but it won't shake me." Trump rose and extended his hand. "Barack," he said with a grin that didn't quite meet his eyes. "Mr. President," Obama replied, shaking his hand firmly. His tone was respectful, but his posture said clearly that this was not submission, and certainly not fear. For a moment, they looked directly at each other. The room fell silent once more. If tension had a form, it could have filled every corner of that office. Staff quietly positioned themselves along the walls, avoiding eye contact, moving like they hoped not to be noticed. Trump gestured toward the chair across from him. "Have a seat," he said. Obama nodded and sat. A folder lay in front of him, neatly arranged with tabs labeled economic reforms, foreign policy, and education. He had prepared to discuss the country's direction. But Trump had other plans. The small talk was brief. "How's Michelle?" Trump asked casually. "She's doing well," Obama replied in his steady tone, adding that she continued to inspire many. Trump leaned back. "Good. That's good." A long pause followed. Slightly too long. Then came the familiar smirk. That was when the real conversation began. "You know," Trump said, voice coated with forced charm, "I still get letters about your birth certificate. People still wonder about that." The room went still. Staff glanced at Obama. There it was, the topic many feared would resurface. Trump had brought back the false birther claim, accusing Obama of not being born in the United States. Obama didn't flinch. Not a blink. He simply sat with his fingers interlaced, expression calm. His eyes met Trump's, not with anger, but with steady certainty. The silence hung there. Trump grinned, waiting for a reaction. Obama leaned back slightly, let out a soft breath and said, "You're still on that?" The simple line cut sharper than any lengthy argument. Trump laughed it off. "Hey, I'm just saying what people say. I hear things." Obama nodded, then opened his folder. He slid a folded document across the table. His birth certificate, the same one released years ago. "There it is again," he said quietly. "Check it as many times as you need. The document hasn't changed." Trump's smile faltered. A small but visible crack. The silence returned. The ticking clock grew louder. Tick, tick. Obama said nothing more. He simply waited. Now the tension shifted toward Trump. For the first time, he looked uneasy. He adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, and forced another grin. "Well," he said, "I guess that settles it." Obama replied gently, "It's been settled for years, Donald." His calm, steady tone carried more weight than any raised voice. Trump shifted in his seat. The energy in the room changed. What was intended as a show of dominance now looked like something else. A man trying to provoke an argument the other refused to entertain. For a moment, no one spoke. Outside, the wind moved the American flag. Inside, the silence pressed down once more. Obama glanced around the room. The portraits, the briefing stacks, the clock. Then he looked back at Trump. "So," he said quietly, "are we ready to discuss the nation's future?" Trump hesitated. His confidence wavered. He hadn't expected such calm resistance. He hadn't expected Obama to hold the room without raising his voice. Obama's strength was in his restraint, and that alone shifted the balance. As the clock struck the next minute, everyone understood one thing. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a strategic face-off between two very different forms of power. And the next move mattered. Once Obama settled into his chair again, the atmosphere shifted. The formal politeness faded. Only tension remained. Trump leaned back, fingers tapping the armrest, eyes fixed on Obama like someone analyzing an opponent before making another attempt. He smiled slowly, the same smile viewers had seen many times, usually right before something controversial. Obama recognized the look. He had seen it during debates and interviews. Trump tried another short attempt at small talk. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he said, glancing at the window. Obama nodded. "It is." But Trump wasn't talking about the weather. His tone had a sharp edge. Then, without warning, he leaned forward. His smile disappeared. "So tell me, Barack," he said, voice suddenly serious. "Are we sure you were even born here?" The words hit the room like an alarm. The faint sounds in the background seemed to vanish. An aide stopped writing. Another looked away. Obama didn't move. Trump continued, sensing the pause. He repeated that many still had questions, and often asked him the same thing. He added a soft laugh, attempting to seem casual, though his intent was clear. This was another attempt to provoke. Years earlier, this same false theory had propelled Trump into political headlines. Even after the claim had been disproven, even after official documents were released, some continued repeating it, and Trump had been one of the loudest voices. Now he was bringing it up face to face. Obama finally looked up, his expression unreadable. His eyes were steady. "Still on that," he said softly. Not a question. An observation. Calm, controlled, and firm. The weight of those 3 words filled the room. Trump blinked, slightly surprised by Obama's composure. He leaned back and spread his arms. "I'm just saying what people say. People talk. I hear things." Obama didn't answer immediately. He breathed quietly, opened his folder, and pulled out one document. He unfolded it and placed it between them. His birth certificate. No theatrics, no raised voice. Just quiet confidence. "There it is," Obama said evenly. "Signed. Verified. Read it again if you like." Trump stared at it briefly, then laughed once. "Well, I guess that clears it up. Maybe." His tone tried to sound light, but irritation seeped through. Obama smiled faintly. "There's no maybe, Donald. There never was." The silence that followed was thick. 2 men, both accustomed to attention, both unwilling to back down, sat across from each other. Trump picked up a pen, tapping it lightly before speaking again. "You know, some presidents talked a lot. I like getting things done. Big difference." It was a disguised jab. Obama's lips curved slightly. "Doing things," he said calmly, "means doing the right things. That's the difficult part." The polite tone carried a clear message. Trump stopped tapping. The pen slipped from his hand onto the desk with a soft sound. The room froze again. Even the Secret Service outside seemed aware of the tension. Trump broke the silence. "Well," he said, laughing softly, "you always were good with words." Obama didn't reply. He simply looked at him with steady focus. It wasn't arrogance. It was control. And that control unsettled Trump. He had expected anger, raised voices, maybe a heated exchange. Instead, Obama brought clarity, confidence, and silence that signaled, "You cannot unsettle me." Trump leaned forward once more, trying to regain the moment. "You know, Barack, when I compare my presidency and yours, I see we had very different styles. I like bold moves. You prefer speeches." Obama lifted his eyes. "Maybe," he replied with a calm shrug. "But words can either connect people or divide them. You choose which ones you build." Another pause followed, longer and heavier. Trump shifted in his seat, growing uneasy. It was clear his opening tactic had failed. The person he tried to belittle had not reacted. Instead, Obama had turned the moment into a reflection Trump wasn't prepared to face. And deep down, Trump realized the meeting would not go the way he imagined. Because in that instant, Barack Obama wasn't just defending himself. He was reminding everyone present, including Trump, that influence doesn't come from speaking the loudest. It comes from standing firm without losing control. The exchange of words wasn't finished. But the first round clearly belonged to Obama. The atmosphere in the Oval Office felt heavier. Trump had delivered what he thought were strong blows, but none landed as he intended. Obama sat quietly, fingers resting on the table, his steady gaze unchanged. That calmness began to unsettle Trump. He cleared his throat and adjusted in his chair, searching for another line, another remark that might break the tension. Before he could speak again, Obama leaned forward slightly. The movement was small, almost casual, yet perfectly timed. "Donald," he said in a low, controlled voice. "You and Ivanka have a son, right?" The question sliced through the silence. Every head in the room lifted at once. Even the aides against the wall looked over, puzzled. Trump froze. For the first time since the meeting began, his confidence flickered. "What's that supposed to mean?" he snapped. Obama didn't hurry to answer. He let the silence work for him in a way only someone fully composed can. Then he said quietly, "It means before you question my background, think about what example you're setting for your own." Trump blinked, thrown off. He had come ready to argue about paperwork and politics, not family. The shift knocked him off balance. He forced a short laugh. "Barack, we're not here to talk about family. Let's stay professional." But Obama didn't return the smile. "Professional," he repeated. Interesting choice of word, because professionalism begins with respect, something you keep overlooking. The sentence lingered. Obama's tone stayed calm, but there was weight behind it, an authority that didn't require shouting. Trump leaned back, trying to regain his pace. "You're twisting this," he said sharply. Obama shook his head. "No. I'm reminding you that real leadership isn't built on insults or conspiracy theories. It's built on truth. And I have the truth written down. Every detail, every record." Trump narrowed his eyes. "Are you threatening me now?" Obama held his gaze. "I'm giving you a choice. Keep bending the truth, or stop before this becomes uncomfortable for you." The room went silent again. Not a single person moved. A staffer near the door glanced toward the floor, pretending not to listen. Trump's breathing grew heavier. He tried to laugh again, but it sounded forced. "Embarrassing for me? Please." Obama leaned back, hands clasped. "You're the one bringing up rumors that ended years ago. But if we're reopening old stories, I can bring up some of yours too." Trump's face tightened. "You wouldn't." Obama tilted his head. "Try me." For a moment, Trump looked ready to explode. His voice rose, echoing through the room. "You're out of line. You don't walk into my office and..." But Obama's calm voice cut through his anger like cool water over heat. "I'm in this office because I earned it once. And I'm here today because I was invited." The words landed harder than any shout. Trump's argument faltered. The edge in his voice faded, replaced by something closer to defense. "You think you're better than me?" he asked. Obama looked at him for a long moment. "No. I think I understand something you still don't." Trump frowned. "And what's that?" "That power isn't about proving you're right," Obama replied. "It's about knowing when there's nothing left to prove." The silence that followed was almost sharp. Even the ticking clock sounded louder in the Oval Office. Obama's words had shifted everything. He wasn't arguing anymore. He was teaching, and that made Trump appear smaller. Trump reached for his glass of water, but his hand shook slightly. He took a sip, hoping no one noticed. Obama continued, his voice steady. "When you lead with anger, you lose control. When you lead with truth, you never need to raise your voice." Trump set the glass down with a hard click. "Don't lecture me, Barack." "I'm not," Obama replied. "I'm reminding you." Then, for the first time, he leaned back with a slight smile. Not arrogant, just assured. "Remember this, Donald," he said quietly. "You're not the only one who keeps records. I have documents too. If I ever need to make a point, I won't use rumors or noise. I'll use facts. and they'll speak louder than any tweet or headline. The final words hit hard. Trump's jaw tightened. He hated being warned, especially like this. But there wasn't much he could say. Every attempt to twist the moment, Obama redirected with calm truth. Every insult fell away like rain on glass. Trump had wanted a confrontation. Obama had given him something far more difficult. A mirror. And what Trump saw reflected wasn't strength. It was insecurity, ego, and fear that someone else could command the room simply by staying composed. The silence stretched again, long and uncomfortable. Trump finally looked away, pretending to focus on a stack of folders. He muttered something about returning to real business, but the conviction in his voice was gone. Obama nodded once. "Sure," he said. "Let's talk about real business, the kind that helps the country, not egos." Trump didn't reply. He straightened his papers, eyes fixed anywhere but on the man across from him. And in that moment, the balance in the room shifted completely. Obama didn't need numbers or arguments or titles. He had won by staying steady while the other man unraveled. That was the real countermeasure. Not shouting, not threats, just quiet control. The kind that makes everyone recognize who truly holds the room. The conflict wasn't finished, but the momentum had changed. Trump began the meeting expecting to diminish Barack Obama. Instead, he was the one struggling to maintain his composure. And as the clock continued its steady rhythm, the atmosphere revealed the truth before anyone said another word. Round 2 belonged to Obama. The Oval Office was wrapped in a heavy silence, the tense kind, not the peaceful one. Trump sat rigid, his jaw tight, his eyes darting downward for a moment before quickly lifting again. Obama hadn't moved at all. He remained composed, confident, almost too calm for the pressure in the room. That calmness wasn't arrogance. It was control. And it frustrated Trump deeply. He tried to steady himself. "You think you can come here and talk down to me?" he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm the president now." Obama looked at him evenly. "I know you are," he said. "And that's exactly why you should act like one." Trump blinked, caught between anger and disbelief. "What's that supposed to mean?" Obama leaned forward just a bit. "It means stop turning everything into a fight. Stop dragging people down just to make yourself feel taller." He paused, his tone firm but not raised. "You brought up my birth certificate again, Donald. After all these years." Trump crossed his arms. "People have a right to ask questions." Obama nodded. "They do. But you didn't ask questions, Donald. You pushed rumors. You built a platform on falsehoods and made the country watch. And now you're doing it again. Only the target changes." Trump opened his mouth to respond, but Obama continued. "You've twisted the truth so many times that even those who once supported you are beginning to question what's real." That struck hard. Trump's fingers tapped on the desk. He wanted to counter, but his usual tactics, mockery, distraction, noise, weren't effective here. Obama adjusted his tie slightly and said something that shifted the atmosphere again. "You mentioned my background earlier," he said quietly. "But don't forget, people haven't forgotten about yours either." Trump narrowed his eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" Obama's expression didn't shift. "I'm talking about the people closest to you. About how the decisions you make reach them." Then came the words that made everyone in the room pause. "Especially your daughter, Ivanka." Trump stiffened. His whole body went rigid. "Leave her out of this," he said instantly, his tone sharp and guarded. But Obama didn't step back. "I wish I could," he answered calmly. "But you involved her long before I ever mentioned her name. You gave her a place in the White House. You let her join calls that shaped policy. She isn't only your daughter. She's part of your administration." Trump shifted in his seat, clearly uneasy. "You don't get to talk about my family." Obama leaned in slightly. His voice stayed quiet, but there was an unmistakable weight behind it. "Donald, I'm not trying to talk about your family. I'm talking about responsibility. When you bring family into positions of power, their actions, and your words about them, become part of the record." Trump frowned, not fully seeing where Obama was going. Then Obama delivered the line that struck hard. "You remember what you once said about her on television?" Trump's face reddened. "That was years ago." Obama nodded. It was. But words don't simply vanish, Donald. They stay. People remember. His eyes stayed locked on Trump. They remember when you said, "If Ivanka weren't my daughter, maybe I'd be dating her." The room went silent. Trump's aides looked away, pretending not to react. Even the air felt still. Obama let the statement sit there. No follow-up, no explanation, just silence. It was the kind of silence that pushes someone to look inward, the kind that forces a person to acknowledge their own words. Trump finally spoke, his voice shaken but loud. "That's not what I meant. It was a joke. You're twisting what I said." Obama didn't react. No smile, no gloating. He simply replied, "That's what you always say. Whenever the truth feels uncomfortable, it becomes a joke. Whenever facts appear, they become someone else's fault." Trump clenched his fists. "You think you're perfect? You think you can come in here and lecture me?" "No," Obama said quietly. "I'm not perfect. But I learned something in the chair you're sitting in. Leadership isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about taking ownership of your words before they take ownership of you." Trump didn't respond. He looked like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Obama rose slowly, his movements calm and steady. He buttoned his jacket, keeping his eyes on Trump. "I came here to talk about the country," he said. "But instead, I walked into the same routine you've been running since day one." Trump stood too, almost pushed by his pride. He extended a hand across the table. "Let's just move on," he muttered. Obama looked at the hand for a moment, then shook his head gently. "Moving on doesn't mean pretending nothing happened," he said softly. "It means learning from it. I hope one day you will." Then he turned and walked toward the door. No raised voice, no performance. Just quiet steps filling the most powerful office in the world. At the doorway he paused. Without turning he said, "The truth doesn't need permission to exist, Donald. It simply exists." Then he left. The door closed behind him with a dull click that felt louder than any argument. Trump stood frozen, his hands still half raised. The room once full of tension now felt cold and still. For the first time that day, Trump had no response. And maybe deep down, he knew he had lost this moment. Not to a title, but to the truth. The heavy door of the Oval Office shut with a quiet click, but the sound echoed through the White House like a signal. No one in the room moved. The aides standing along the wall exchanged uneasy looks, unsure whether to speak or slip away. Trump remained behind his desk, his hands slowly curling into a fist. His face remained flushed, his breath uneven. But his eyes told a different story. For the first time that day, they showed no anger. Instead, they showed confusion, and perhaps a hint of doubt. He sat back down, staring at the desk for several long seconds. The room that once felt like his stage now felt smaller, quieter, almost drained of its usual noise. A single sentence lingered like a faint echo. "The truth doesn't need permission to exist." Trump glanced toward the window where the late afternoon sun was fading. Outside, the American flag moved gently in the wind. For a moment, he looked almost thoughtful. Almost. Then his expression tightened again. "Get me my schedule," he said to an aide. But even then, his voice lacked its usual force. The meeting that was meant to embarrass Barack Obama had ended in silence, and that silence carried its own message. Meanwhile, down the hall, Obama walked with steady steps, each one echoing softly against the polished floor. Secret Service followed at a respectful distance, and no one spoke. He didn't look angry. He didn't look pleased. He simply looked tired but calm, like someone who had said what needed to be said and didn't need to add anything more. As he reached the main corridor, a staffer asked nervously, "Sir, are you okay?" Obama gave a small smile. "I'm fine," he replied. "I just hope the country will be too." The words carried a quiet weight, the kind that stays with you. He stepped outside into the evening air. The sky was painted gold and orange, almost symbolic. It felt peaceful in a way the White House hadn't felt minutes earlier. Obama paused, looking up at the flag above. He said nothing, but his expression reflected pride, patience, and a certain sadness, the kind that comes from caring enough to be disappointed. He knew the exchange inside wasn't just about him. It was about truth, leadership, and what happens when power forgets why it exists. He took a deep breath, and for a moment you could almost follow his thoughts. How leadership had changed, how politics had turned into performance, how simple truth had become something people debated. He knew the story of that meeting would spread. Some might twist it. Some might deny it. But it didn't matter. The truth doesn't rely on belief. It simply remains. Later that evening, in a quiet interview, Obama was asked about leadership. Without mentioning the meeting, he smiled calmly and said, "Leadership isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about listening when others refuse to." The interviewer waited as Obama continued. "It's easy to insult," he said softly. "It's easy to spread rumors. But real strength is staying steady when others lose control. Strength isn't in shouting. It's in standing on truth, especially when it's difficult." He leaned back, his tone reflective, almost instructional. "When I was in office, I made mistakes. I take responsibility for them because that's what the job requires. Honesty, even when it's uncomfortable." After a brief pause, he added, "Integrity isn't how you act when cameras are on. It's who you are when no one's watching." The words hung in the air, simple, clear, powerful, and somewhere in that message was the core of what had happened earlier. Obama didn't win by being loud. He didn't need to. He let truth speak, and it spoke louder than anything else could. As night settled over Washington, the White House lights glowed softly. Inside, Trump's team worked to move past the meeting, acting as if nothing unusual had happened. But those in the room knew better. They remembered the silence after Obama's words. They remembered Trump's unanswered hand. And they remembered the calm that followed, the kind that doesn't need volume because truth doesn't shout, it stays. Later that night, in private reflection, Obama reportedly wrote a single sentence in his notebook: "Power fades, truth doesn't." That was the lesson he had hoped to show. Not just to Trump but to anyone who was paying attention. Leadership isn't about pride or humiliation. It's about humility. It's about standing firm without lowering yourself. And that's how he left the White House. Without applause, cameras, or attention. He had faced noise and answered with quiet strength. And that's what made the moment unforgettable. Not because he was louder, but because he stood steadier. As the story ends, one question remains. What does leadership mean to you? Is it power, popularity, control? Or is it honesty, even when no one is watching? Because as Obama showed that day, truth doesn't need to fight. It only needs to stand.